everybody. Welcome to the Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave. I'm joined here with my co host, Greg. Greg, how are you on this fine Sunday evening, end of March?
Mm, Stepping into spring. Um, yeah, it feels good to kind of maybe we're leaving a lot of, the winter behind. Doesn't it feel like, Dave, and obviously you've got some stuff to share. I don't know if you want to share here or share more in more of a dedicated update for our listeners. But it's been a tough little bit of a winter, right?
Yeah. I think that as much as I'm trying to stay optimistic about the trajectory of this year, 2026,
Mhm.
it does feel like this has been already a challenging year.
In like a lion out like a lamb is what they say about March, but hopefully to 2026.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay hopeful that there's
Yeah.
some positivity. And there is glimpses of positivity even in the some of the bleakest moments, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just
we
trying
don't
to
want to be
stay
all
focused
all
on that.
down,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
it's important to talk about because look, people identify with that. That's like life happens and things get difficult sometimes and we got to pivot. We got to do what we got to do. Even this episode is like something that I've personally struggled with for months, much better than it was for reasons I'll share, because there were things that were certainly helpful to me. Um, but Dave, shall I, without further ado, or do we have some Patreon to do, or what do you
We
think?
do. Hold on one sec. All right. When was the last time we recorded? Because that will tell me where we
The
left
week
off.
before last.
All right. That does not help me as much as I thought it would. So if I repeat some, you're welcome. You get double the shout out.
I'll know.
Bailey. Bailey joined our Patreon. Was that a new one?
There's a new one.
That's a new one. Joe D. Joe D joined our Patreon and then immediately contributed some insight into his story a little bit and also made a episode request. So Joe D already uh,
Part of the gang.
part of the gang. Thomas Hudgens. Thomas Hudgens. Welcome. Welcome to
Welcome,
Patreon.
my friend.
Sarah Downey Sesa or Sessa. Correct me, Sarah. I'm sorry if I said your last name wrong. And I also have to announce for the paid membership is Gus Kettlings.
Hmm.
But the thing I love about Gus is he is spelled Guus. So it could be Gus
Or
or
Goose.
Gus. Ooh, or is it Goose?
It could be Goose.
Ooh. But
Eason.
he did say I think it's okay for us to pronounce it as Gus.
Okay, we will then.
I think I read that somewhere. And if not, I just made that up to make myself feel
Great,
better that we were
great name. You know what I mean? I love the
it's
name of
cool.
that.
Um
Yeah.
and also Goose or Gus.
Yeah.
Um my dog that I've mentioned numerous times name was Gus. So already a special name to me. Rest in peace, Gus. Not Gus, the Patreon member, my dog, Gus. So yes, there we go. Patreon members. Thank you so much. And also I also want to just say, and as Greg mentioned, a lot going on, but I'll share it in probably something for on the Patreon directly. Um, but I just want to thank the Patreon members for being a community, not just for them, but also for us, because I had some members kind of share some feedback and support, offer some support, and just
Yeah,
it's a nice
I agree.
place.
It seemed like it was actually, watching as a supporter of you too, Dave. Watching your last sort of post, I felt that like that was helpful for you because I did notice towards the end, like you were sort of some emotion there.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, so that was like nice. That wasn't say it's nice to see, but it was nice to see because I was like, you know what? He's talking about it, and that's like feels like it's the emotions coming through is a good thing, like kind of maybe a little bit of a release. And I was like, oh, this is probably pretty good for him, and maybe he should continue to do this, almost like a video diary, like you're on Real
Yeah.
World.
Yeah, and I got some like obviously some major updates in that whole situation that I'll share, but I will say, people in our profession and even when we're not in our work mode, people look at us still as if we are our profession sometimes, and you fall into a like a role almost, right? And
Yeah.
you it being of support. So sometimes you kind of forget that you also may need some support at times. So yeah, talking is definitely helpful.
It does,
And
and thank God for that.
yes,
Because it keeps the ball moving.
yes, sir.
So Dave, I did, and like I mentioned earlier, in Insomnia, something that like is weirdly first time in my entire life has been a struggle for me this year. Um, but before I got into that, I did want to mention this show. Did you used to watch the show Insomniac with David
Yeah.
Tell?
Yep.
What a
Yep.
like what a little bit of, what a time.
It
Like
was,
that
I
was
can't
so
remember what
short-lived.
I really can't remember what years that ran. I could easily look that up. Maybe I
I
will,
think I want
maybe
to
I
say
won't.
like
Early
99, 2001, maybe something like
Yeah, I
that.
want to say probably very early 2000s if I were going to make a guess.
Hmm. I'm with you on that. And it was just David Tell, who's like this wildly funny. I would say underrated, but I think among comedians, he's considered probably maybe one of the best. Um, and it would just be himself staying up all night in New York City and checking out what's going on in the nightlife or whatever city. I think maybe it changed
Yeah.
cities.
I can't,
But what?
yeah, I wish I could remember more about it. It started in 2001 and it had 4 seasons.
Wow. Okay. I can't believe it started in 2001. I felt like I was watching it before that, but I guess
Also,
in
this has nothing to do with the diagnosis other than
no.
it's the show is named Insomniac,
Well, he's staying up all night. So I
but it's
mean, it's
fun.
yeah, yeah, and it's just well, the show was named Insomniac, I think, or it could have
It's
been Insomnia. I don't know.
Insomniac. It was
Okay.
Insomniac, yeah.
So
Oh, and also there was a movie with Robin Williams and Al Pacino called Insomnia, and it takes place in Alaska, I believe, right?
yeah, oh yeah, and so
Wait, is
here's
Robin Williams in that? I think he is. No.
the thing that I wanted to like the reason why I brought up the David Tell show is because there it's part of the treatment is like what David Tell is essentially doing if he was suffering from insomnia and saying like, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna go to sleep, let me do something, or let me, stop, because a huge part of insomnia is it becomes like fearful to go to bed. Like you start thinking, getting nervous about bedtime, like around dinner time, and you're like, oh crap, is it gonna happen again? It's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen again. And if you're kind of like, well, I'll just, I don't care. If it happens, it happens, kind of thing, is a good sort of approach. So insomnia is this common sleep disorder. It's hard to fall or stay asleep. It can also be the kind of thing where you're waking up too early in the morning. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, like wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and then have a hard time getting back to sleep. Obviously, this can affect your mood and your health and your quality of life. What do you think, Dave? You've experienced this.
Of course. When you said that, I kind of started to laugh a
I
little
know.
bit
I
because
saw it.
I literally think everybody's experienced this. I would assume. I feel like it's like you said, it's a common sleep disorder. But I mean, even if you haven't experienced, let's say, insomnia per se, you've experienced probably some sort of sleep disturbance in your life. I would say probably I would make an assumption, a wild assumption.
Yeah.
90% of the population has experienced some sleep disruptions, whether it's like what you said, inability to fall asleep, or maybe you wake up at like a ridiculous time and you cannot fall back asleep. I did actually, I was kind of the opposite of you. When I was in high school and maybe even a little bit before that, I would have some bouts of insomnia. And I think it was a more stress related stuff.
Sure. It usually is.
Um, and that has definitely ceased. I now fall asleep like 2 seconds after my head's on the pillow.
Okay, so you're like a
It's
bear
almost
now.
like a joke.
Us
Literally, I'll be
insomnia
like,
people can't stand people like that. But you brought up an interesting point where you're like, sometimes that will happen to me and I'll go through bouts of it. And so the difference is if someone's, it is sort of an anxiety disorder in a way, or at least it can be because it's like if you are like, oh no, I haven't gotten the best sleep a couple nights in a row, is it, and then you start to be concerned, like, is this going to happen again? It does become sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy thing where you know, getting anxious at bedtime is going to have the opposite effect of falling asleep. So if you're getting nervous about your ability to sleep, then it is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And not even that, it just will prevent you from going to sleep because you'll be anxious, your heart rate will be up, you'll be more alert, which isn't, conducive to sleep. So, Dave, what do you think about what's the average amount of sleep that most people need? I think we all kind of understand this kind of
I
thing,
mean,
right?
I always assumed like 7 hours is kind of like probably the minimum you should get.
Yeah, so they say 7 to 9 hours. I mean, obviously 8 hours is always that sweet spot, but different people. There are some people who are just biologically different, where like 6 hours is enough for them. There's some people where 5 hours is enough for them,
Yeah.
and some people definitely need the 7 to 9 hours. Some people are like, I've heard people be like my sister, she'll be like, I need 11 hours, and it's like, Lee, that's I don't know.
See,
It's
I,
called a
I know a ton of people who are the opposite. Like I have a lot of friends who do overnight shifts at different places, and I feel like they run on 0 hours some nights, and they can like make up for it later with like just one night's sleep, and they're functioning normally. I don't understand that because honestly, if I don't get at least 7 hours on a regular basis, my immune system drops. I'm a mess, and then next thing you know, I'm ill, and yeah, it just doesn't work for me. I have to get a good night's sleep in order for my body to function properly.
That was like a myth too. I believed it for most of my life, thinking that if you have like a string of bad nights of sleep, that you can kind of just get one good night of sleep and it makes up for all of it. Your brain actually does store like what we call like a sleep debt, where you are like owed sleep. Your brain needs us to catch up for a little while before it can start
Yeah.
behaving in such a way that like optimal. But here's the thing, like you shouldn't feel so concerned if you start to like have like a bunch of sleepless nights, because I mean, just like you start to think of things like mania, you start to think of things like, am I going to lose my mind, or am I going to like pass out at work? And the reality is, like, in my experience and when I've talked to others, I mean, not really. You can kind of like survive a lot of this and get by for a little while. You just need to start working on it, and there's ways that we'll talk about on how to do it. So I'll just give you an example of like just one more sort of like riff on what insomnia is, and then you can kind of get into the symptoms, Dave. Because at some point, well, I'll just say many to all of us are going to have short-term insomnia, and this can last for days or weeks, usually due to stress or something really kind of difficult going on in your life. But some people have long-term insomnia, and it's chronic. So this lasts for 3 months or more, and insomnia may be the main problem, or it could be related to some kind of medical condition or medicines that you're taking. You could be chasing fixing it with medications. Um, but you don't have to like put up with this. That's what I want. That's what I want the message of this episode to be. Like, you don't have to put up with sleepless nights forever, and you do not have to be completely reliant on medication, because there are things that you can do to help. So, Dave, get us into the symptoms.
Bro, that was such a great riff.
Thanks. I, I mean, I,
At the beginning of it, you said you just wanted to riff. I don't
I,
know
I
if
ripped
riff.
a little bit. What do you think? It
Wait,
wasn't a bad riff.
is riffing reading notes?
Yeah. I'll tell you what riffing is. Riffing is like reading notes, but like kind of straying away and then sort of whipping around back. Like it's
Wait,
style.
I was literally reading that along with you, so I'm still.
You
No, I'm
said
just.
so
I'm
then
just messing with.
I
I'm
straight.
just. You added a few extra words in there. That was pretty sick.
Thank you.
Um, I'm
And
just messing with Trey.
riff. That
I'm
was
gonna
some
riff some symptoms right now.
riff 'em out.
So let me riff these away. All right. So insomnia symptoms may include having a hard time falling asleep at night. Can you
Believe it or
believe
not.
that? Waking up during the night could also be a symptom. Waking up too early, feeling tired or sleepy, feeling cranky, depressed, or anxious, having a hard time paying attention, focusing on tasks, or remembering, making more errors or having more accidents. What kind of accidents? Um,
Not diaper. Not. I
oh,
don't know why I
okay.
said diaper.
Having ongoing worries about sleep.
Yeah, and I think that's. I'm gonna draw a highlighter across that. By the way, Dave, that was not a riff. That was what we call verbatim.
Yeah, I didn't riff that. So yeah, so um, I mean, in general, I think you could probably summarize that whole category. I'm just gonna riff on this one. Being sleepy would be a symptom, right?
I would say so.
And then all the symptoms that come with sleepiness, right?
Yeah, yeah, or lack of sleepiness. I think we all kind of know where
Or
that
lack of sleepiness, I mean. All right, so when to see a doctor? Yeah, when it makes it hard to do your daily functions, right? Like when it impacts your life. And I think that's the case with anything. Like we always talk about, you can have any disorder, but if it doesn't actually impact your day to day or your ability to function, you really don't, it doesn't matter. That means you've kind of like navigated life
Yeah, you don't sleep.
knowing, yeah, but like this with this, I mean, in this, it feels like that's a silly statement to say when it impacts your life because at some point, like we were saying, it catches up to you.
Yeah.
So you go a few sleepless nights, eventually it's going to catch up to you. So it will impact your daily activities. And when that's ongoing, that's when you should get some help from a doctor. And that doctor is probably going to say, get some sleep.
Yeah,
And you're
and
going
you're
to say,
like,
but I
I
can't.
can't. Yeah.
And then you're going to have to figure out some strategies, which we'll get into later, right?
Yes, we will.
So, what causes insomnia? That's what actually, that's probably the thing that I've always wondered the most, like beyond just like the obvious things. So, long term insomnia is usually created from stress.
Yeah.
Like life events happen or habits that disrupt sleep could also impact it. So while treating the cause of your sleep problem may stop your insomnia, though, sometimes it can last for a very long time. So common causes are or include stress. So I know that that one gets me. That if anything's ever going to interrupt my sleep, it's usually stress related. It's thoughts, about school or work or health or money or family or all the things you have to do on a daily basis or all the things you have upcoming, just worrying about things, life events that have happened, like death or relationship issues or your job and all those things. Those, stress related. That's actually the thing that will wake me up in the middle of the night. Suddenly, I'll like find myself awake and I find myself thinking about something I'm like stressed about the next day or coming up. Um, Other things could be travel or work schedule. So if your body has like this internal clock that's known as your circadian rhythm, and that guides things such as your sleep wake cycle or your metabolism, your body temperature, and disrupting these rhythms can lead to insomnia. So this could be like from jet lag from travel, uh, changing your work shifts or things like that,
Yeah,
or
like
just
the
like
exposure to
inconsistency.
light is a huge part of that.
Sure.
Uh, so that, yeah.
Poor sleep habits. This one is one I feel like we probably talk a lot in our setting over, in therapy. Um, so many people come to us with poor sleep habits and they say they're having a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep. And then they tell us that, they've been doing things like taking naps or, you know, getting themselves all revved up right before it's bedtime or looking at devices while they're
Using their
laying in
phone.
bed.
Yeah.
That's always. Um, Working, overworking, eating right before bed, I guess could be another thing.
Yep.
Playing video games right before bed, like a lot of those kind of things. Like there needs to be some, and we'll talk about this more, but there needs to be some like settling down time before you go to sleep. And also like, you know, just laying there, allowing yourself to stew in the thoughts about how you can't sleep isn't great either. So, getting yourself out of bed or
And we'll
doing
talk about that
something.
too, which is
Yeah.
weird.
Yep.
Which was which was a big tough one for me. But yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Eating too much late in the evening could definitely have some impact on that. Many people also may experience things like heartburn, um, issues that, feeling discomfort could keep you awake. Mental health disorders, so anxiety disorders, like PTSD and things like that. Those may disrupt your sleep. Waking up too early can be a sign of depression. Insomnia often occurs with all other mental health conditions, so sometimes it can kind of coexist
Yeah,
with.
people who maybe have experienced trauma and they haven't really fully processed that, it's like you're super vulnerable at night, and sometimes your nervous system will kick on in the middle of the night to almost as like a protective factor, and that could be super frustrating. Like
Sure.
people wake up with their heart pounding, and they're like, "Oh my God!" Like my heart, so you obviously you're gonna mention like medical conditions and stuff like that. Like you got all those people wearing the sleep apnea mask. But I think like the mental health disorders is one that people it's gotta be it's a huge one. It really
Yeah.
is.
So as Greg mentioned, medical conditions.
Mhm.
So pain, diabetes, heart disease, asthma, GI issues, overactive thyroid, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, even cancer, all those things can be linked to insomnia. and also medicines. So, certain things, I see a reference here to asthma. I know like some inhalers actually have things that kind of rev you up, and that might make it hard to sleep
You
after
got to
you
figure
have to
out,
use
do
them.
you want to breathe or do you want to go to sleep? I mean, pick one.
Yeah.
You can't have everything.
Um, allergy in cold medicines, which is interesting because I've always had like kind of the opposite effect. They usually make me drowsy.
Mhm.
I love taking cold medicine before bed if I'm not feeling well, but
Yeah.
it does help me sleep. Weight loss products, those often contain, do they still contain caffeine? I know they used to. That was a big
I don't
component
know.
of them.
I don't know. As
But
you can tell, I don't really use them.
or any kind of stimulants, for example, like Adderall, things like that. If you're on something like that, that is a stimulant. So you need to make sure that when you take it, you're taking it at times where it's kind of already worked out of your system and not impacting your sleep. And if you take like XR versions of it, that's another thing to consider if you are having sleep issues, because the way it releases later might be too far off in the day and maybe impacting your sleep. Sleep related disorders. So you mentioned sleep apnea. Um, restless leg syndrome is another one that people struggle with and can make it really hard to fall asleep. And then lastly, caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol all can impact sleep. So coffee, tea, cola, anything like that has caffeine and stimulants is going to make it hard. Nicotine, I didn't really realize that was something that could impact sleep.
I used to smoke a cigarette before bed. I smoked cigarettes for like 15 years, and like it was.
Do you
It's funny.
recommend
I
it
smoked at a
to
whole
your
different.
listeners, Greg? Is that what you recommend that as a sleep aid?
Uh, no, no, I suppose I don't.
Oh, it
Although,
sounded like you were endorsing
yeah,
that, so I was
I just
just
thought that
asking.
nice cigarette at the end or in the morning, wake you
Yeah,
right up, right, with a
or
coffee.
no cigarettes at all.
That's
Stay
right,
away
no,
from nicotine, please. It's
please.
a needless thing that you don't need
I agree.
complicating your life.
I agree. And you don't want
And
to have to. Yeah,
alcohol, people, I think, there's so many things about alcohol that people have like the opposite idea about,
I know.
like drinking away your problems. It's like, no, it doesn't really work that way. Actually, they just compile and get bigger down the road. um Alcohol makes me happy. It's a depressant. It will eventually catch up to you. You will become depressed. And people who think alcohol helps them sleep, you're not really getting restful sleep. It's actually trash sleep.
It'll knock
And
you out. Yeah.
yeah, but you can be drunk, sleep like 11 hours and feel like you got 2 hours.
Sleep
It is
score. Yeah.
not
Your eye
quality sleep.
watch or whatever is going to be 12.
Yeah. Oh, when I drink alcohol, I mean, I snore, but when I drink alcohol, I snore way worse.
Yeah.
And I probably have sleep apnea, and whatever is going on there is so much worse when I drink. And I feel like I got zero sleep whenever I drink. So that always sets me back big time,
No, I know, and it's things as you get older, all these things sort of like as we keep saying, catch up with you.
for
Because
sure.
it used to be fine. Cigarette and a drink before bed. Good night. No problem, right? But those days are over. Anyways, so let's talk about some risk factors here. So I picked this up on the Mayo Clinic website, and the first risk factor, which I thought was strange, is you're a woman. That's what it said. And it said changes in hormones during the menstrual cycle and menopause may play a role. So a risk factor is being a woman. That is something. During menopause, obviously night sweats, hot flashes can disrupt sleep, and I think that's what we're talking about here. You're over 60. Changes in sleep patterns and health. It's more likely you have insomnia as you get older. And maybe that's what's happening to me. You have a mental health or physical health condition. Obviously, there's physical health conditions. Pain's going to keep you up. But I think people think less about the mental health aspect of it. It's like, or maybe they don't, but like anxiety and unprocessed stress or even processed traumatic symptoms can disrupt sleep. Um, you're if you have anxiety, we're not going to get into. You can listen to the episode on anxiety, and we'll talk about how you're misfiring the nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system engaging, which is going to make you alert. So your body's wanting you to be alert even when it's unnecessary or irrational. So that's obviously going to make it difficult to fall asleep.
Yes.
Being under a lot of stress, Dave. Yeah. So this can definitely cause there's a lot in your mind, right? So obviously it's sometimes it's difficult to go to sleep because when you're worrying, that's taking I mean I guess like when you've got a lot in your mind and you're trying to like you're doing this excessive worry thing, it's like you're trying to some way deal with the uncertainty of the of like what's going on. And it's a coping strategy, but it's a maladaptive. It's keeping you awake. And also maybe this is where it all kind of started, like changing shifts at work. Obviously people who travel a lot, but like you were saying, Dave, people who do like night shifts and overnight shifts, and God bless them because
Yeah.
that's like really tough. So let's talk about a little bit of complications from not getting enough sleep. All right. So sleep is important, obviously. It's important to your health. It's important for physical activity. It's important even in terms of your diet. Um, so keeping you from sleeping is going to lower your performance on the job and at school if you go to school. Slowed reaction time, which could make things dangerous if you're driving or if you're operating machinery. I don't know, whatever you're doing. And Dave, in our role, even right, if we're not getting enough sleep, we're not at our best for sure, and we're not really engaging the way we
Some
could.
might think we're better than normal if we're too tired to
Did
respond.
someone tell you a story about that once?
Yes. I think we were in grad school. No, wait, where were we? No, I know where it was. We were at work. It's actually I think our former supervisor used to share that
Yeah,
story
I
about
never
someone
really
saying
like
that.
bought that story.
I do. I
The,
do.
the story was essentially like, and then one day I was so tired and messed up and just going through it. I didn't say anything all day, and everyone was like, "Damn, you did a great job today." And I was,
I do believe it, but I think it's for the wrong reason. I have
mm,
a I have a teenager who one day I just was like, and he was like, his mom was making him go and to go to like to do sessions. We were doing it over Zoom. He used to argue with me, just give me a hard time the entire session. And then like I got him on board a little bit, but he still was like having a struggle. And then one day I was like just super tired. And I basically barely said anything and I just let him rant and rave. At the end of the session, he goes, I think that was one of our best sessions. And I was like, are you kidding me? I literally said nothing.
yeah, you were like
But I
waving.
mean, that was in his
Oh,
mind. That was the best
yeah.
session. But that's what he needed, maybe. So I do kind
No,
of
you're
think
right. I mean,
there's something to that.
it
Not for
can
everyone.
it it can be. Um, well, also, all right. So a complication of insomnia. I don't. I almost hesitate to say this, but like it can lead to depression, right? Obviously, the frustration and the anxiety of being afraid to go to bed can, and never getting enough sleep and not feeling satisfied with sleep can make you
Yeah.
depressed. Of course, it's
Well,
almost
and also, Greg, this is the less you sleep, the more it's like lowering your tolerance. It's
sure.
lowering your judgment, your problem solving skills. So there's going to be fallout in
Psychological
life.
flexibility, right? Where like
Yeah.
you're easily stressed. Also, Dave, and I'm gonna be completely honest with this. This is true. So when I was in the throes of this, and then like and now it'll peak in every once in a while where I'll like have like one or two like bad nights sleep, and I'm like, well, whatever. What are you gonna do? I don't even care anymore. But like there was a time when it was bad, and I was like, I was having trouble like figuring things out for this. I was having trouble figuring out things for work. I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. I need to sleep. And the person I'm in a relationship with, and she doesn't mind me saying, she had anxiety issues, and she has like like a benzo, like a Xanax or Klonopin or one of these freaking things. I don't know which one it is. But me doing what I do and having worked at the hospital and having people talk about how they've been on that a million times for sleep, it was so close to just being like, guess who's going on benzos, whether he tells anyone or not, right? If I had I not been a therapist and had I not been like, I have to figure this thing out on my own, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like I thought about that. I also thought about like what we talked about as like a really maladaptive approach. And you could just see like drinking or something. You could just see how like because Dave, like I was at the point where I was like, will I get bad sleep? I understand that, right? I understand I will. But bad sleep. So I mean it really was kind of like that. And I'm just wanted to be vulnerable with that a little bit because like when people are going through this, it is so hard and frustrating, I think is the major thing. Um, and so it almost makes you want to like do something. And I can see how people get wrapped up in these sleeping pills, which are designed to be more of a temporary fix and not always, and they have their side effects, so it's not always the best sort of approach. Anyways,
Nightmares, sleepwalking, bedwetting. There's a ton of things that can come with that. That's actually something I hear a lot of people get upset about is when their med prescriber won't prescribe them
yeah,
sleeping pills. That's actually something kind of common actually. And there's all a variety of reasons. For example, like if someone does drink alcohol on a somewhat regular basis, even if it's like not an incredible amount, but if someone reports that they drink like a glass of wine nightly, they might be less likely to prescribe the sleeping pill and say like, well, you're already doing that, so why don't you just do that instead.
yeah, yeah.
Actually, it did hear a prescriber say that to my patient. Now he was livid about that,
Yeah.
which
I
I'm glad
know.
I don't have to
Look,
deal with that end.
med providers are just med providers. Like that doesn't mean there's good ones and there's bad ones. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Honestly, and that's just the way it
But
is. So,
I do sort of get the message though, because he's kind of like, that's not helping you. I mean, the glass of wine before bed's definitely not helping. So like, why don't you cut that out and I'll prescribe this? And since the person was not willing to cut out the glass of
okay,
wine,
well
then he's
that's different.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, then he's like, well, then I'm not going to prescribe you the thing because I'm basically saying like one or the other here. But
And,
yeah, I think those are things that the prescribers have to like navigate as well.
absolutely. And of course, so like one more sort of complication, obviously, is worsening of, conditions that you already have. Also, like high blood pressure and heart disease. This becomes like a real sort of danger. Your body needs sleep. It's like a condition of living is getting an
Yeah.
adequate amount of sleep. Um, and I'm not trying to scare anyone, but that is something that's absolutely necessary.
I actually am always surprised when I don't feel like people take sleep serious enough. Like I take it very serious and I always have just because like I said, if I don't prioritize sleep, it does impact me pretty quickly, like my immune system. But I know so many people who don't really seem to prioritize it and they deal with insomnia and different sleep disruptions for way too long. I also
Yeah.
know a ton of people who try to address it and they feel like nothing works. So hopefully if you are dealing with this and you're listening, hopefully we'll offer some strategies that maybe you haven't tried yet, or maybe we can identify some things that you're doing that might be counterproductive and trying to, figure that out. Because you shouldn't, this is something that I feel is like should be prioritized for everyone. So prevention,
Mm.
good sleep habits is like that is a number one thing I think is like trying to develop good sleep hygiene, I guess we
I
call it.
agree with you because before you get into them, it's like you want to be able to say before you're even going to think about medication, even think about treatment, am I doing everything that I can to make sure that I'm like setting myself up? Is there anything that I'm doing that's getting in the way of this that I can kind of address right now? And I think that's a smart place to start.
So consistency, I think, is huge,
Yeah.
or at least it is for me. So keeping the time you go to bed the same as much as possible, trying to keep the time you wake up is the same as much as possible. Trying to also do that on weekends, making it so weekends don't disrupt your day to day during the week so much. I know like some people love to sleep in, and that's okay. But also, if you're sleeping in and you're sleeping so long on the weekends that it disrupts your early half of the week, think about it. You're just constantly making up for what you did differently, the few days prior. So I would say if it's impacting you, maybe consider readjusting that.
Yeah.
Staying active. So regular activity can obviously lead to a good night's sleep because you're going to tire your body out, hopefully. And also like if you ever have like those super lazy days, maybe you feel tired all day and you just don't feel like doing anything. But when you
Yeah.
actually go to sleep at night, you're just suddenly not tired
Mhm.
because you didn't do anything. So you got to let out some of the energy, some of the anxieties, all that stuff. Try not to nap. It's again like I mentioned earlier, like naps can be super counterproductive. I think some people. All right, so like let's say you got really bad sleep the night before, or you didn't sleep at all, and you're like, oh, I need a nap. Well, just remember that nap is then going to impact your ability to sleep that night as well.
Right.
So
And there's evidence that suggests that like not napping is the key and if you don't get any sleep, still waking up on time is the key because you're creating like a hunger for sleep and your body
sure,
will be more and more ready for it.
yeah, I would say, the best bet is if you didn't sleep the night prior, trying to force yourself to safely to stay awake as late as you can to as much as close to like your normal quote unquote bedtime as possible so that you can hopefully get a good night's sleep that night. Uh, so yeah, try to limit or not use caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine. I mean, in general, I guess is what they state, but like, you know, closer to bed, try to limit it for sure. I have a pretty hard and fast rule. Like, I don't really drink caffeine after like lunchtime.
They say 12. So yeah, that's probably on point. And that was something I was not doing. My hard and fast was about 5.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
was
I know people that will drink caffeine though, like right up until bedtime.
Oh yeah, me too. I envy those people.
And actually, caffeine is not my biggest issue. I think I can sleep on caffeine. Alcohol, that one, I'm definitely guilty of drinking that right before bed on some nights.
Hmm.
Nicotine, no nicotine here. Um, don't eat large meals or drink a lot of fluids before bed. So that, is something important to try. Try to have like a cutoff time, whatever, you feel is reasonable. Some people eat late dinners, and I don't know that that's super great to do that on a regular basis. I know some people's work schedules kind of force them to do that, but it's just something to consider if you are having sleep issues and how that may be impacting you. Make your bedroom comfortable for sleep and only use it for two things: sleep and sex. Those
Uh-huh.
are two things for bed.
That's right.
Um, Creating a relaxing bedtime ritual, such as a warm bath, reading, or listening to soft music. Greg,
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
how do you enjoy your warm baths before bed
Yeah, I
still?
do. Bubble bath every time.
Do you really?
No. I've
Oh,
taken a bath since I was carried into one. So,
last
uh,
week.
no, no. No. It's been a while. Although, hey,
What do you do before bed?
if you what I do before bed, unfortunately, is probably watch TV right up until about the time. But what has changed is I do not watch TV in my bed.
Okay, so you literally shut the TV off and then lay down and then
No, I
go to
shut the
sleep.
TV off and I'm probably, if I'm being honest, probably like 10, 15 minutes of like a wind down time, which is kind of just staring at the dark wall in the living room before I walk up the stairs. You know what I mean? Just to be like,
Contemplating your life
yep, basically.
and how
Yeah.
it got to this point.
Like, whew, you know, like one of those. Yeah. So,
I
I'm excited to get into this a little bit because what worked, or I say worked, but like what's helping me is following a pretty strict CBT for insomnia program, which it basically came down to like, hold on, before I like the quick fix is never the way. Let me like really kind of like dig in and try my own sort of profession. Let me believe in what I do for a little bit here and see if I can fix this in its own, without any medications. And honestly, I'm still sort of get a little bit of anxiety about bedtime just because I'm like, oh, is it gonna work tonight? But like I've been doing way better. So the first thing is like we've ad nauseum talked about like the stimulus control, but honestly, associating the bed with sleep rather than and sex, right? Rather than frustration is very important. And so that means a couple of things. One is that, Dave, if you go into your bed and you're laying around and now you're like, oh, what the F, right? I can't fall asleep. It's been 30 minutes. You need to get out of your bed and you need to go somewhere calm. You need to read. You need to do those things that you mentioned that are almost like pre-bedtime things, like meditate, I wouldn't take a warm bath, but like read, um, kind of relax, go breathe, but somewhere else. And this was like one of the harder things for me because it's like it's Pavlovian, right? This is a very conditioning kind of thing. So if you are laying in bed frustrated, then your brain's going to start associating your bed with frustration and anxiety as opposed to rest,
Mm.
right? And so that's hard to do at first. So what the hardest part of this all, the first part, and the reason why people really kind of give up on sleep CBTI, even though the efficacy is like through the roof, like 80, 90%, is this sleep restriction portion of it, where it's like, okay, you're getting like 5 crappy hours of sleep, maybe if you're lucky. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you an in-bed window of 6 hours, right? And you go to bed at 11:30 and you get out of bed at 5:30 and whatever happens in that time happens in that time. And then you stay up and you kind of so it's like creating this little window of sleep, and this is what it's doing is like making your sleep more efficient because eventually it's going to be hard. Like you might go to bed at 11:30 and you might not get to sleep till 3 and then now you're up at 5:30 and now you have a really hard day. And then you kind of like do this for a while until you're like just sleeping in that window and then you extend the time a little bit. It's really, really hard, but the it really does, you know, help with sleep efficiency. Because what was going on for me, it was like I was, maybe I'd stay up all night. And then around like 4, I'm like, all right, now I'm tired. Great. I got to be up and go to work in 2 hours. And so like the first day, I was like, you know what? I haven't called out in a while. Or basically ever. Let me call out. And then I slept till like 11. So now I'm like in a weird spot, right? Where it's like now I slept at 11, so my body shouldn't be tired again till, like 2 o'clock in the morning. So it just creates this weird thing. So the sleep restriction is really important. Also, the cognitive restructuring is a part of it too, where it's like dysfunctional beliefs about anxiety and sleep. For me, it was like if I don't get enough sleep, I'm worried that I'm gonna like be wildly ineffective at work or like I don't know, maybe have some like real damage to my mental health. Like I was really concerned about those kinds of things, and that doesn't necessarily have to go hand in hand, right? And the more you kind of it's like a paradox because the more you worry about it, the more likely that is to happen
Yeah.
and that which makes you worry about it even more. And then of
So,
course, like, go ahead.
Greg, so that for that one, honestly, that story that we told about the therapist who said that the day they were super tired, they actually got positive feedback about their that
Yeah.
actually helped me with this
Okay.
because those days I go into office, I put way less stress on myself about how my performance will be because I keep that story in mind and that can be also be okay sometimes. So
Yeah,
it's
and
it's kind of
right.
helpful.
So it's like kind of an exposure, right? So it's
Yeah.
like I guess in a weird way, like I felt the same way because it's like I would go at a certain point, like it's like it is what it is. You have to go to work, and so you go to work and you go to work tired, and then like you make it. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
get through the day, and
You
then
get
and
through it.
then you start thinking like, all right, well, if I don't get the perfect amount of sleep, I'm gonna be okay. And it puts a little bit less pressure on the sleep, which makes it a little bit easier to sleep, which
Yeah.
is this really kind of crazy thing. Also, what's funny is like people will have a really hard night's sleep and they'll be like, I got 2 hours of sleep. But you probably got more than that, or you're worried that you got this like really low number. But in reality, like with laying there and resting, that stuff matters too. Um, like it's really hard, but just trying to not put as much pressure on sleep, which is something that you're going to kind of get into next. And the last thing I'll say is like that's been a little bit helpful is like I guess progressive muscle relaxation helps me a little bit. But I think more than anything, it's just more of an acceptance and commitment kind of thing where I'm like, yeah, I'm stressed that I might not be able to sleep. And if I can't sleep, I won't sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
Dave, tell us a little about this paradoxical intention. This is a Frankel kind of a bit.
Okay. So the here's the key principles and steps. So the first thing is stop trying. So you got to let go of that active effort to fall asleep. You don't have control to
Mhm.
make yourself fall asleep. So you got to let go of that idea. Intentional wakefulness is the next principle. So that's lie in bed with the lights off, and then try to keep your eyes open while you're lying in bed. So
I
you're
like
almost
that.
like trying to you're psyching yourself out.
Yeah,
You're
like that.
reverse psychologying yourself.
Yeah, opposite action in a sense, right?
Yeah. Yep. So reframe wakefulness. Um, view the time awake as a calm opportunity for rest, not a catastrophe. That's actually another thing that's been a little helpful to me. Instead of sometimes like I'm like, oh, I'm just laying here and I'm not sleeping. I'm not actually asleep, so this is pointless, and I like get mad at myself. And it's like, actually, no, my body is resting right now. So I reframe the way that I'm looking at it, right?
That's a beautiful. I think I like read that somewhere too. That's good. To
Uh
reframe wakefulness is good.
yeah,
Like it gives me a chance to think calmly or
sure.
You know, like my body's resting is a good one because that's true. I am just laying here like an idiot. So
I gotta let my dogs rest for a little bit. I'm always
that's
on my
that,
feet, you know?
those feet aren't, they're not stressed. Yeah, exactly.
And then reduce anxiety. So when you stop forcing yourself to sleep, the anxiety that keeps you awake starts to dissipate,
Mm.
hopefully. So, how to practice, avoid clock watching, do not focus on how much time is passing. If anything, like, turn your body away from the clock so you don't have to even look at it. Shift your focus. So, when your eyelids get heavy, try to stay awake for just another minute rather than giving in to sleep. And then use mindfulness, accept the wakefulness rather than fighting it. Greg, just one more really quick, just like a couple of thoughts of things that I do. So
Give me
I
with it.
will like I try my best to shift my thoughts almost to like start dreams in my head. I don't know if that sounds crazy, but
No,
literally like I'll be thinking about day-to-day stuff and I try to distract my thoughts. Like I acknowledge the day-to-day stuff. I tell myself like that's a problem to worry about tomorrow. And then I try to think about like I almost make up like little dream scenarios because I'm really good at daydreaming. I can daydream all day, but I almost like go into like stories or like ideas that I have of like things I would love to create, like a movie idea or book idea, something. But like I go into like things that aren't stressful to me. It's really hard, but I've kind of almost mastered the approach of like shifting thoughts away from stressful things because that used to really get me. So that to me, that's super helpful. And like I said, just that reminder that like things you're worried about, there's nothing you can do about them in right now. So that's a problem for like tomorrow me.
right.
And just
Yeah.
trying to do that, you know?
Yeah, no, that's actually super helpful. And I've actually weirdly been doing that because I've had this dream lately and I'm like, you know what? Let me just try to get back in that old number.
Yeah, yeah. If you like have a dream that like
Yeah.
you're easy, like can kind of remember trying to
Mm.
like intentionally put yourself there. And yeah, I find that to be helpful for me.
Yeah, I was like fixing my ex-girlfriend's father's car, which I have no idea how to do, in his driveway. I'm like, let me just go do that. That was fine. It was like it was a nice day. Like,
Yeah,
what was I doing there? Who knows? But it's
right.
fine.
Things
Um,
that aren't stressful.
things that aren't stressful. Let's go through a couple of these common misconceptions. So,
Okay.
the myth is insomnia is only trouble falling asleep, and the fact is it includes waking up too early, difficulty staying asleep, and waking up feeling unrefreshed, which kind of is me every day, no matter what the hell happens. But maybe that's something I need to look into.
Yeah.
Occurring at least 3 nights a week.
Okay. The myth that you can catch up on sleep on weekends. So the fact is that sleeping in actually disrupts your circadian rhythm and worsening the cycle of insomnia. So sleep loss creates a debt that cannot be fully repaid in one weekend.
We talked
So
about that.
stop thinking it, you
Yeah, that
idiots,
ain't gonna work. Ain't gonna work.
you weekend warriors.
No, 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 I can't do it. Sorry, Doc. A lot of doctors think that.
Doc
Myth.
Holiday.
Doc Holliday, rest in peace. Alcohol helps you sleep better. No. As Dave mentioned, it causes drowsiness and silliness, but disrupts your sleep quality and reduces REM sleep. So you're not really like having that nice refreshed cognitions and increases like waking up in the night.
It increases shiny happy people
It
holding
does.
hands.
People playing that song over and over again on the jukebox.
Myth. If you can't sleep, stay in bed and just try harder. Try your best.
Yeah.
No, that's wrong, you dummies. Lying in bed awake creates a mental association between the bed and frustration or alertness. If you cannot sleep after 20 to 30 minutes, get up and do a relaxing activity.
Whatever that may be.
Read a
Uh,
book.
read a book. So, myth, you can train yourself to live on less sleep. So, the facts are most adults require 7 to 9. Chronic deprivation leads to long-term health risks regardless of being, accustomed, as you would say, to sleep. Although I will say, with the caveat, this is people generally, people are individuals, so some people just don't need as much sleep from biologically, right? Some people are just different and built different, you know?
Yeah. I
Like
wish I was built
I'm honestly,
different.
can I tell you the truth? I'm a 6 hour guy. If I'm getting 6 hours every night, fine.
It's like a comfortable amount of sleep.
It's fine, right? It's like
It's
fine.
fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
But 7 to 9 is probably the preferred.
7 is probably better. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So myth, napping helps fix insomnia. Fact, long or late day naps reduce the sleep pressure needed to fall asleep at night, worsening insomnia. That makes so much sense to me. And it's something I've always kind of like assumed was the case. And that's why naps are not good.
Yeah. And lastly, but not leastly, well, actually, there's two things before I want to get into this, but we kind of somehow didn't mention. Getting sun and light exposure early is very important. For whatever reason, we didn't mention that throughout this entire thing, but that's
It's because
something.
we just thought everyone knew that already.
Yeah, get some. Let your body know that it's morning, so you can it can so it can keep your.
All the listeners right now are like, Greg, we know this.
You
That's
know.
why you didn't mess. That's
Uh,
why you didn't mention it. We already know it.
uh, um. Also, insomnia. The myth is that it's all in your head or just anxiety. Well, a lot of time that's true. Um,
But not always,
but not
right?
always, because it's often driven by physical conditions, as in poor sleep habits, and like we've talked about, and environmental factors. And even another thing, another sort of thing for your own little bedroom there is drop the temp a little bit. It's gonna be cool. Like it's you sleep better in cooler temperatures, believe it or not.
Oh, and dark curtains work for me
Yeah,
pretty well.
dark. Let's get dark and cold. Sleep in your
Yeah,
face.
it's harder to wake up with those darkened curtains,
Yeah.
but it's a lot easier to sleep and stay asleep.
I think that that's it. I think everyone's gonna go. I think we should sing a little lullaby here because everyone's about ready to go to sleep after this.
We already put them to sleep.
You, oh,
Listen to us
listen to this
right before
podcast
bed,
and you
right
fall
before bed.
asleep. Yeah, you'll be asleep before you know it. And
10
you're,
minutes in.
you're cured anxiety.
It's like we only got into the Patreon members and we fell
Yeah,
asleep.
yeah. Next thing you know, I'm asleep. Put this on every bed every night. Go to sleep. Oh God. All right. We got to do something. We got to really do something to knock their socks off next week. Like um, I don't know, some kind of interesting story.
I had a realization in this episode.
What's up?
I said Doc Holliday.
Have we done the
No,
shoot at
I
the
was thinking
well?
of Doc Hollywood, aka the Michael
Okay,
J. Fox movie from like the 90s,
okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
Because you were like, rest in peace. I was like, don't you say that about Michael J. Fox.
Yeah. No, no. God, no. That's my guy.
Also, rest in peace to Mr. Skinner from Back to the Future, who just passed away today, the principal.
Really? Wait,
Yeah.
who else? Who else? There's another big one.
No,
Uh,
Mr. Strickland. I said Skinner.
Dude,
Mr.
Mr. Skin from The Simpsons.
Strickland. Yeah. Mr. Strickland from Back to the Future.
And oh yeah, the bald guy
Yeah.
from
And
also
he always looks mad.
Problem Child.
Yes, he was in Problem Child too, I believe.
Problem Child too. He's the principal. Always plays the principal, I think.
Just has a face for it.
Got a face for it. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris passed away. A lot of people have been passing away lately.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Memento mori, as they say. Well, here we go with our, you know, our sadness.
Not to make a joke out of it, but someone said, you know how there's all those like Chuck Norris memes?
Yeah,
Like someone said Death was afraid to tell Chuck Norris he passed or something like that. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah. That's kind of funny.
just keep him going, you know?
That's kind of
The guy's
funny.
a legend.
Guy was a legend. I mean, especially with like growing
Oh,
up,
Chuck Norris had insomnia, right?
he
Chuck
beat it up.
Chuck Norris doesn't sleep, he waits. Isn't that what the one of the meme were? I
Yeah,
used to love that.
we got to go through like you could do a whole podcast of those. Chuck
Oh,
Morris,
a Chuck
Chuck
Norris.
Morris.
Chuck Morris.
You you change one letter and forget it. The guy's reputation is dismantled.
Chuck Morris. He does not sound like a tough guy anymore.
Dude, honestly, like that's like psychological karate because it's like if you're like, who's this? Chuck Morris? He'd be like, no, it's Chuck Norris. Already you've weakened them. uh,
Oh boy. All
Chuck
right.
Morris.
Chuck Morris.
Oh my God. All right.
Oh boy. All right.
That's gonna be a t-shirt. Chuck Morris.
Sounds like he would have a gluten allergy.
Yeah.
I don't know
Poor
why.
little Chuck Morris. He got picked on in school so much that he started taking karate. That's how the legend began. You know. All right. Well, Dave, I guess that.
And no shade to gluten allergy. I actually eat a lot of gluten-free stuff.
No, yeah,
I
yeah.
live
No,
with a celiac person,
don't
so I
worry.
have to.
Yeah, we don't have enough listeners that like losing him
Oh
to
yeah,
it.
no shade.
Yeah, no shades of gluten. Hey,
I trust me.
everything's fine.
I get the lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Dave
everybody.
gets poopy pains when he has ZD too, so don't worry.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you later. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Have a great life. Get some good sleep.
Oh yeah, there we go. Get some good sleep.
Get some good ones. Get some good ends. Get some good ends.
It's like a long weekend. Get some. Sometimes it's over. And you know what I'm saying? One last thing. Get some good ones. Okay.
Gotta shut this off.
All right. Fair enough.
All right.
All right.
Good night, Chuck Morris.
Good night. Good night.